I'm Lisa. It's nearly a year since I tied the knot with Robert. We've been happily cohabiting in a cozy, budget-friendly apartment, sharing dreams of upgrading to a brand new standalone home. Despite his parents' residence being just a stone's throw away, they rarely drop by. Robert once mentioned, "Mom prefers not to interfere in our marriage. That's why she keeps her distance, despite the proximity." Hearing this only deepened my admiration for my mother-in-law. For many women, the specter of a meddling mother-in-law looms large after marriage. Yet it seems I lucked out in that department. If meddling were to occur, I'd certainly put up a firm resistance. My folks always taught me, if someone picks on you, give it back twice as hard. Then they'll think twice about crossing you again. But it appears unlikely I'll need to engage in such battles with my mother-in-law. Thus, I could enjoy a stress-free atmosphere when it came to family dynamics. After years of dedicated work, our careers flourished, prompting earnest discussions about homeownership. It was during this time that my parents, privy to our aspirations, presented us with a compelling proposition. Should you decide to embark on the journey of building your own home, we'd be delighted to offer you a portion of our land. They graciously extended the offer. While my parents weren't affluent, a stroke of fortune from my grandfather's past had endowed them with valuable land to pass down. When they consulted my grandfather about the idea, he simply remarked, "I've entrusted it to you, so do as you see fit." Excitedly relaying this to Robert, he wholeheartedly embraced their generosity. Let's seize this opportunity with gratitude. I can never adequately express my thanks to your parents and your grandfather as well. It's his legacy, after all, he remarked, acknowledging the significance of the offer. Thus commenced our exploration into the type of dwelling that would suit us best. Weekends were spent perusing showrooms, marveling at our boss's opulent abode, and consulting with real estate agents regarding upcoming developments. Indeed, the anticipation of planning often outshines the reality of implementation, doesn't it? However, our idyllic reverie was abruptly interrupted by a phone call from my mother-in-law. As Robert fielded the call, it became evident that she had somehow caught wind of our aspirations for a new home. With a tone that hinted at unexpected expectations, she proposed, "If you're considering building a house, why not make it a duplex so we can reside together?" Her proposal left us both speechless. It had never crossed our minds that my mother-in-law, who had been largely uninvolved in our affairs, would express a desire to cohabit in a duplex. After a brief moment of stunned silence, Robert offered a vague response, opting to sidestep the question altogether. His reaction wasn't unexpected. The notion of a duplex hadn't even registered on our radar. Our plans had centered around creating space for a future child, and the prospect of redoing everything from scratch was daunting. Yet, outright rejection of the idea risked straining our relationship with my mother-in-law. I shared Robert's bewilderment. We had committed to monthly family dinners at her place, and during one such gathering, she seamlessly picked up the conversation where we had left off. Even with Robert's brother, Mark, being a single father, she began, "Have you given any more thought to our discussion about the duplex? I truly believe it's a wonderful idea. What are your thoughts? We're more than willing to pitch in financially, and selling our current place should fetch a decent sum. Plus, with kids on the horizon, wouldn't it be beneficial to have us right next door for any emergencies? It's all advantages, isn't it?" With unwavering enthusiasm, she'd embarked on a rapid-fire enumeration of the benefits of a duplex. Despite my attempts to interject, she persisted. Admittedly, her points held merit. While the prospect of assistance during the arrival of a baby and the financial offer were enticing, I held firm in my belief that my husband and I were capable of handling any challenges that arose on our own. Trusting in the support of my own parents seemed preferable to inviting potential conflict by relying too heavily on hers. As she observed my contemplative expression, she pressed on, "Is it really so dreadful to live with us? I had hoped you didn't harbor any ill feelings towards us." But perhaps I misjudged. Her tone seemed to hint at disappointment, prompting me to feign obliviousness as I hastily departed her home. Despite my evasion, she persisted in bombarding my husband daily with the same plea, leaving me feeling increasingly stressed by the relentless pressure. "What's your take on this, Robert?" I asked, grappling with conflicting emotions. The idea of living together isn't entirely unfavorable. Having our parents close by could provide a sense of security. However, I'm hesitant to sacrifice our privacy and independence. After considerable deliberation, we reached a decision to politely decline my mother-in-law's proposition. Preserving our alone time took precedence in our minds. We resolved to convey our decision with clarity, hopeful that my mother-in-law would comprehend our perspective. As we made our way to my mother-in-law's house for our monthly family dinner, we braced ourselves to share our decision with her. However, before we could articulate our thoughts, she interjected, "Oh, regarding the duplex, we've already started making arrangements." Stunned, we exchanged puzzled glances. "What?" I managed to utter, only to be interrupted once more. "And to top it off, Mark will be moving in too. You know, being a single dad is tough. Let's lend him a hand with the child. Besides, gaining some experience with children will be beneficial when you start your own family. Don't you agree? You should definitely consider it." Her unexpected announcement left us dumbfounded, and we found ourselves so taken aback that we completely lost track of our original purpose for visiting. In the face of our silence, my mother-in-law interpreted it as agreement and proceeded with the construction of the duplex, consulting my father-in-law and brother-in-law along the way. Despite our attempts to express our dissent, our concerns were repeatedly brushed aside with dismissive remarks like, "We're busy at the moment, let's discuss this later." As the plans for the duplex gained momentum, the financial burden fell on our in-laws, relieving us of a significant expense. However, the realization dawned that not only would we be sharing a residence with our in-laws, but also with my single father brother-in-law, necessitating our involvement in caring for his child. The weight of the situation bore down heavily on me, and my husband's resignation only added to my despair. "We're powerless to stop it now. Let's just accept it," he conceded, his defeatist attitude echoing my own feelings of futility. Reluctantly, we pressed forward, finalizing the blueprint and deliberating over interior details like tiles and flooring. Typically, at this juncture, we should have secured the necessary funds. However, the promised financial assistance from my in-laws was conspicuously absent. Frustrated, my husband reached out to his mother, only to be met with a request for immediate financial aid in lieu of the promised funds. "Could you cover it for me? I'll repay you within a month," she pleaded. "Fine," he acquiesced. Though the funds were unavailable at present, the project forged ahead, rendering any attempt to halt it futile at this stage. Robert and I were barely scraping by to cover the expenses ourselves, but resorting to such measures seemed unnecessary. The selfish behavior of my in-laws ignited fury within both of us. "You talk about covering the cost as if it's pocket change," Robert erupted at his mother. "Oh, come on," she retorted. "She'll pay it back in a month. Has she ever deceived you?" Suddenly, my brother-in-law interjected. Taken aback by his interference, Robert reluctantly agreed to wait for a month for the payment and began eagerly anticipating his mother's transfer. Feeling conflicted, I decided to seek counsel from my parents about the situation. The following day, I sought solace and guidance at my parents' home, grappling with the dilemma and hoping for a way to put the plans on hold. Expressing our predicament, I questioned whether we could postpone the project. In response, my parents offered a reassuring solution. "We had always intended to gift you that land, and if they're committed to paying later, we'll cover the expenses," they assured me. Overwhelmed with gratitude, I sought confirmation. "Truly? Are you certain?" "Absolutely, dear. Your happiness means the world to us. Don't sacrifice your dream home for the sake of your future children. Let's not allow this multifamily arrangement to come to fruition," they affirmed, their words comforting me deeply. Touched by their unwavering support, tears welled up in my eyes. My mom, with a mischievous grin, chimed in, "Besides, if they're always around, it'll make it difficult for me to visit, won't it? And I intend to spoil all the grandkids myself." With my mother's assistance, construction progressed smoothly, and at long last, our dream home stood complete. However, a month passed without any financial contribution from my in-laws. To our surprise, they began moving their belongings in ahead of us. A peculiar situation indeed for a supposed duplex. Where was our designated space? Since the funds for a duplex were never transferred, we hadn't constructed one. Consequently, there was no room reserved for them, yet they began occupying the area we had earmarked for our future children. To compound matters, my mother-in-law proceeded to host a housewarming event, inviting her friends under the pretense of showcasing our dream duplex. It's a cozy space, albeit compact, but the garden is delightful. We're even planning to cultivate a vegetable patch. When the harvest comes in, I'll share some with you, she boasted, as though they had contributed financially to the project. Oblivious to the truth, her friends admired the house before departing. After their move-in and a period of settling, 2 months elapsed with no payment from my in-laws. Despite Robert's confrontations, their response remained the same. Soon, very soon. This pattern persisted for 3 months, then half a year, without any change. To exacerbate matters, my mother-in-law abruptly declared, "We've decided against selling our house. Instead, Mark and his children will reside there," making it clear she had no intention of honoring their financial commitment. Yet, I wasn't taken aback. My husband and I had previously speculated that she had no intention of paying us. Then came her audacious request. "I've noticed the house feels a bit crowded with you two living here. Would you mind vacating? I occasionally have friends who want to stay over, and I'd like the flexibility to use the space as I please. Doesn't that sound reasonable?" In response, Robert's tone grew firm as he asserted, "That wasn't the agreement. Why should we have to leave our own home? Both of you are employed and rarely at home. Besides, since you don't have children, it shouldn't pose an issue. Moreover, Lisa's family is affluent, right? Surely you can afford to build a new house." I was left speechless by my mother-in-law's brazen remarks, and my husband shared my disbelief. "You haven't fulfilled any of your financial commitments as promised." "Did you ever intend to?" he challenged. "What choice did I have? I wanted to provide a home for my son, a single father, and his precious children," she retorted, growing increasingly agitated. Realizing the futility of the situation, we retreated to our bedroom that night to discuss our options. "If this continues, my mother and her family will undoubtedly attempt to evict us and take over the house," I voiced my fears. "Sadly, I think you're right," my husband concurred, his frustration evident. The following days brought a barrage of verbal attacks from my mother-in-law, accompanied by relentless harassment. "If you want to avoid being bullied as a daughter-in-law, you better leave promptly. This is what they call mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law drama," she taunted. Confronted with the reality of our predicament, I regretted underestimating the situation. However, determined not to be a passive victim, I resolved to take action. A month later, after strategizing with my husband, parents, and grandfather, we devised a plan. We made the decision to vacate the house in order to execute our plan. With resolve, my husband informed my mother-in-law, "We're moving out. You'll have the freedom to entertain your friends as you wish. It'll make you happier that way." Her face lit up with delight at the news. We opted to relocate to a newly constructed apartment that had caught our eye, returning to the realm of renting. "It's reminiscent of our early days as newlyweds," my husband remarked, reflecting on the peaceful life we once enjoyed in a similar setting. A week later, the phone rang, and I overheard my husband's conversation. "I understand. That's fantastic news. When can we expect it?" I was certain our plan had succeeded. Indeed, the day after we formulated our strategy with my parents and grandfather, we listed our house for sale. We swiftly found a buyer who requested we vacate the premises within 3 weeks. Seizing the opportunity while my mother-in-law was absent, we opened our doors to acquaintances, colleagues, and interested parties seeking to view the house. The call we received today was from a family who had decided to purchase it. We arranged for 2 spacious trucks and coordinated with movers to swiftly load our belongings and furniture onto them. Strategically, we chose a time when my in-laws had announced their weekend getaway to a New York theme park with their grandsons. As they likely reveled in the company of a certain mouse mascot, we seized the opportunity. With their overnight stay planned, we prepared meticulously in advance. The execution of our plan unfolded seamlessly, thanks to the efficiency of the professional movers. Packing was completed well ahead of schedule, leaving us poised and ready in front of the house upon my in-laws' return in the evening. Sensing the tension emanating from my in-laws as they entered the house, my mother-in-law's anxious voice pierced the air, demanding answers to the sudden change. Meanwhile, my father-in-law echoed her distress. Robert and I observed calmly from the outside, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal the truth. "Everything's loaded onto these trucks. The destination's noted on a piece of paper stuck onto them. Please proceed there. It might be a bit snug, but it'll suffice for the 2 of you. Well, perhaps it'll feel a bit crowded if you have guests over." Additionally, this house has already been sold. It's now someone else's property. Take care, I informed my in-laws. Their disbelief palpable. What do you mean you sold it? This was our home. You can't just. Our home. They protested vehemently. However, the property was registered under Lisa's parents' name, and the house was legally ours. We had every right to sell it, especially considering they hadn't contributed a single dollar. Their audacity to claim ownership without fulfilling their promises left us indignant. In the face of their stunned silence, Robert delivered a final decree before our departure. We've managed things thus far, but unloading is your responsibility now. Surely you can handle that much. Their feeble protestations of financial incapacity were met with a revelation. I'm aware you're not lacking funds. You've been selling Lisa's belongings and pocketing the proceeds, Robert declared, exposing their deceit. Their expressions shifted from shock to shame as the truth sank in. How did you find out? They stammered. Does it matter? Robert dismissed. Furthermore, you needn't repay us. Consider it severance pay. Spend it as you wish. And with that, we'll be on our way. I doubt our paths will cross again, Robert declared, severing ties with his parents. Taking my hand, we swiftly departed for home. Upon our return, we phoned our parents and grandparents to share the successful outcome of our plan, bringing them immense joy. Furthermore, my grandfather, aware of our impending move to an apartment, revealed, I still have some land remaining. I'll gift it to you as well. I'll even cover half the expenses for building a new house. Encouraged by his generosity, we embraced the opportunity and embarked on constructing our new home. 6 months later, we fulfilled our dream of constructing a beautiful single-family home. Nestled a bit away from the bustling city center, we enjoy the crisp air and the warm hospitality of our neighbors. Our hearts brim with contentment. As for my in-laws, their whereabouts remain a mystery. It appears they reached out to my parents seeking financial assistance. Additionally, they approached their son, who is set to remarry next year, hoping to live with him, only to be met with a firm refusal due to his future wife's plans. When my parents were approached, they firmly declined any involvement with our family matters, setting clear boundaries. Robert expressed his regrets to my parents for his parents' actions, but they reassured him, saying, "From now on, we're your true parents. Lean on us as much as you need, my son." Anticipating potential future challenges, my parents advised us to install a home security system for added peace of mind. We find solace in knowing that my parents are prepared to refuse entry to his parents should they attempt to visit. Additionally, we've welcomed a guard dog, a small, adorable puppy, into our yard. Their mere presence should deter any potential intruders. With these precautions in place, we can finally bid farewell to any interference from his parents. This marks the start of a fresh chapter for us. In the coming years, we envision building a joyful family, complete with children. We're determined to protect our happiness at all costs. It's a vow we've made to each other, one we intend to keep.